By no stretch am I a tree hugger, but in the course of my reporting, my path has been realigned by two simple yet influential St. Lucians. Barbara Jacobs Small nudged, poked, and downright insisted that I participate in a regional Clean Oceans journalism competition, which resulted in this. This would start a snowball of environmental impact stories, which led me to the doorstep of this guy, Dr. James Fletcher, one of the region's most experienced and knowledgeable climate change characters. In an interview with Dr. Fletcher, who is the coordinator of the Caribbean Climate Justice Project, he made a bewildering, confusing, profound, yet predictable assessment of climate change.
It said this summer will be the coolest summer you'll experience for the rest of your life. Every single climate catastrophe is taking place in some part of the globe right now. So I think what we've reached is a tipping point.
Most scientists agree that an increase of just 0.4 more degrees will drastically change the world.
And the world are dealing with record extreme heat.
Storms have been causing deadly floods.
You could have mass melting of ice sheets.
Since then, the world has continuously echoed. A child born today would experience 4 times the extreme weather events than we do. Greta Thunberg and Vanessa Naketi are 2 young, reverberating voices on behalf of the next generation.
My main message to President Biden as he comes at COP27 is just a question. Will you show us the money? Will you deliver the money for a loss and damage finance facility? Will you stand with the communities that are on the front lines of the climate crisis?
What do we want? Climate justice! What do we want it? Now! Shut it down!
From protests to policy meetings, panels and public events, young people's voices seem more prominent now than ever on the global stage.
We should reduce, reuse, and recycle and plant more trees.
If we want to achieve a fully fledged...
Yet, behind the scenes, they feel that big companies and governments are using them to look good without really listening to what they have to say.
While much more must be done to reduce global emissions, it's time to level up support for climate adaptation.
Generation Z stands the most to lose from the climate crisis, thus fueling their words with urgency. And rather than directly being involved in official negotiations or valued for their unique perspective, many young experts believe they are instead being used simply as a box-ticking exercise.
If we don't have the public pressure from the outside that we need, the COPs as they are now are not going to lead to anything big.
Not so, says the organizers of COP27, with the debut of Youth and Generation Day, which sought to ensure that young people be part of the conversation.
When I think back to high school, I don't recall ever being exposed to the issue of climate change. I was familiar with the buzzwords, but in the classroom, this issue never came up and the science and facts behind it were never discussed.
1,000 young people from more than 140 countries set demands for actions for climate empowerment, adaptation and resilience, and accessible finance during Youth Day.
We want to protect our rich biodiversity and preserve the wonders of our Earth for generations to come.
Today is Youth and Future Generations Day.
What did Generation Z and the activists shaping the world of tomorrow have to say about efforts to respond to the climate crisis? And did any tangible initiatives come to fruition in Egypt? Well, they got a chance to table the global youth statement. It said, at this critical juncture, COP27 must demonstrate tangible progress in delivering on the pledges and promises made in Paris and Glasgow.
My name is Zachary Phillips. I'm from Antigua and Barbuda, and I'm at COP with the Alliance of Small Island States, and I'm one of their fellows. Following loss and damage, making sure that islands' voices are heard, that's our goal for COP27.
I'm Christiane Zaku from Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm here with the Loss and Damage Coalition to campaign for loss and damage finance at COP27. The Caribbean is suffering under the future of climate change, and we need to accelerate loss and damage finance.
First, COP27 must finally accomplish the goal of adaptation finance and commit to a dedicated finance facility for loss and damage in order to enable most affected people and areas and climate-vulnerable countries to cope with and recover from the increasingly destructive impacts of climate change. They went on to state, COP27 must embrace justice in the transformations ahead towards a climate-resilient future, advancing the interlinked and interdependent climate and development goals in a post-pandemic context. Third, despite or precisely because of the deteriorating geopolitical environment, the COP27 must facilitate international cooperation and dialogue to collectively address the borderless, transnational climate crisis. Now, this is a whole topic on its own, which shines a spotlight on the hypocrisy of world leaders' macro-humanitarian agreements versus national political agendas.
To reestablish the United States as a trustworthy, committed global leader on climate. As I stand here before you, we've taken enormous strides to achieve that. All across America, like young people around the world, they feel the urgency of climate. They feel it deeply.
Youth Day at COP27 also saw several youth-led protests with people from across the world calling for climate justice to be embedded in all decisions made at COP27.
There's no time anymore to keep coming to these COPs as an exercise where parties come in their private jets and are sponsored by Coca-Cola, etc. And we do a whole dance around an issue so critical and so urgent.
Climate justice activists, particularly youth, remain determined to secure an impactful loss and damage framework. Dedicated finance is a strong step towards global solidarity. Now that countries like Scotland and Denmark have spoken up and jolted the developed world into collective action, it is hoped that the resolutions of COP27 on loss and damage augur meaningfully for all of mankind.